Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Claret Blue podcast. We've got a familiar face now. I reckon lots of you will know him either from his vast and varied TV work or the fact that he's a big Villa fan like the rest of us. Introducing Mr. Nigel Boyle. How are you, Nigel?
Hello, mate. Sound as a pound, how are you?
I'm good, mate. We're going to get stuck into some of your career and people will know you. We'll touch on that later and we want to promote your latest gig as well. But before we get to that, Aston Villa podcast, we want to talk about all things Aston Villa. You've been a Villa fan since a boy, haven't you, Nigel? Tell us how it first began for you.
It started when I was probably about 10, 11. Youngest of 6 kids, big Irish family, 3 boys and 3 girls. And the 2 other boys, my older brothers, were actual Blue Noses. Now, one was really into it, and the other one was not so into it. He didn't go, but my other brother Martin, he used to go regular, and he actually took me down to a couple of games. So my first foray into football was St Andrews. That must have been when I was about 7 or 8, and we grew up in a pub called the Bailiff Hay, actually, in Bartley Green, and so we used to get a mixture of Blues and Villa coming in, the odd Albion or Wolves or whatever. But my dad took over an Irish club in Perry Bar called St Teresa's. Now, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's on the Wellington Road near where... Do you remember where the big crown used to be, the Crown and Cushion?
Oh, Crown and Cushion, yeah.
Yeah. So it would be just up the Wellington Road from there. But anyway, that was when I was 10. And obviously, it's just a stone's throw from Villa Park. It's at the top of Aston Lane, basically. And I started knocking about with a few lads. And we went down... We used to go down to Villa. And then I got really into it in my early teens and used to go regular and start following it. And yeah, the rest, as they say, is history.
I mean, it's a safe space here. So you've made your admission about your brothers being Blues fans, but were they never leaning on you to try and go along? I know you said you went to St Andrews a couple of times, but was it you were quickly sure that you weren't going to be one yourself?
Yeah, I guess at that age I wasn't really into football. It's something that came from going to the Villa for those first few games, and something that I really, really developed a huge interest in. If they didn't really lean on me. My brother Martin, he was great. He was just, I think he was just getting me out of my mum's hair, really, and getting me out of the way. Yeah, we weren't a big sporting football family. My parents, Irish immigrants, come over in the 50s, all they were interested in was working and earning money, really. So my dad wasn't a massive football fan, although he did claim to like Nottingham Forest, and that was purely down to Brian Clough's capital punishment. Is it capital or corporal when you're allowed to hit people? I can't remember. But
was that when he waded onto the pitch and started punching everyone?
Yeah, he loved that. My dad was all over that, and he ruled with an iron fist, and that was right up his street. So it just wasn't a big footballing family. And my dad sadly passed away when I was 10, and I started doing my own thing quite a lot. Really, I was going out and getting up to all sorts, as a young teenager, and just going down the Villa on my own with my mates and getting down there in the old days like you used to at 1:30 to get your plot up in the Holt and smoking. And I think at the time they used to sell these little bottles of Skull. Do you remember that? And I was drinking them, and my mates, I thought it was the business, you know what I mean? And in the winter you'd wear your Villa top over your jumper and stuff, and you thought you were really cool.
So tell us about, what era is this then? Is this early 90s?
Exactly that, yeah. So my dad died in 88, I was 10. So yeah, around 1990. So being an Irish publican, one of my dad's friends ran a pub up the road from our school. His name was John McCullough, and he ran the Horse and Jockey in Wednesbury. I went to school in Wednesbury. And his daughter was Sharon McCullough, who's still alive, but she, because he passed away, but she used to work in the ticket office. So he introduced me to it as well. So he was like, "Oh, do you want to come down to Villa?" And I was like, "Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I better ask my mum first." And yeah, he took me down. He managed to get me tickets for the Coca-Cola Cup final at Wembley. Going to Wembley and seeing us beat Man United is something really special. So that reinforced the enthusiasm. so that all through my school years in the night. I finished school in '95, finished my A levels, and then went to university and carried on there. I'd come home for the games and watch them on the telly when we were on the telly and stuff.
You similar age to me, then. Shows you having the life of a lovey, whereas me having a tough paper round. The fact I look about 10 years older than you, but so it was a great time to start watching Aston Villa, though, wasn't it? So you're talking probably you saw Graham Taylor get us back on track in the early days, and then it was through the Big Ron era.
I remember him stood in front of the Holt at that last standing game of the terraces before it went all seating. John Gregory, Brian Little, all them kind of managers. So, God, it's been a roller coaster, actually, hasn't it? It really has.
Well, you mentioned the Coca-Cola Cup final against United. I've said this many times on the podcast. Back then, we thought that Villa won trophies every, bit like me, too young for Rotterdam, but then you win 2 League Cups in 94 and 96. You thought, blimey, this is a club that wins things all the time. And now, however many years on, hasn't quite gone to plan. But it was...
can't buy one, can we?
No, I was going to say to you, I remember speaking to you a few years ago and did a written piece for the paper.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was there something about your first game with Nigel Kennedy or something? You sat behind him or something?
Exactly that, yeah. So I remember seeing his Jaguar. He used to have this sky blue Jaguar, and he'd graffitied it with all Villa kind of slogans and stuff. I think he did it himself. He just graffiti. Do you remember it? He used to park outside the North Stand.
You're right. It looked a bit of a wreck, to be honest, considering the money he must have had. It looked, like you said, he could have got a professional job done on it, really.
I think so, yeah. It was no Banksy anyway, was it? But this old friend of my dad's, John McCullough, whose daughter used to work in the ticket office, the very first game we went to, it was against Derby County. 2 people didn't show up for their tickets for the director's box. And a guy called John Greenfield was in charge of it then. I don't know if that rings any bells with you. He went on to...
I know John. Yeah, I saw John a couple of weeks ago, actually, at Gary Shaw's funeral.
Oh God, yeah. So he was in charge of that kind of thing at the time. I think he was in charge of the director's box.
Yeah.
And he gave us these tickets. He said, well, the people that were having these didn't show up, so I've got you 2 tickets for the director's box here. Normally we'd have been in the North Stand, you see. And I was sat behind Nigel Kennedy, and then met all the players afterwards in the players' lounge and got all the autographs and stuff. And that was really cool.
It's hard work being a Villa celebrity now, because Nigel Kennedy used to be the most famous Villa fan when I was a kid, and now you've got Prince William, you've got Tom Hanks, you've got Nigel Boyle.
Not in the same league. They'll all start be coming out the woodwork now anyway, now we're doing well.
So talking about that brings us on to modern Villa. I think this is the best I've seen. Like I said, just a little bit too young to have seen the 81-82 glory years. Seeing Big Ron's kind of swaggering team, seeing us threaten under Martin O'Neill, seeing Brian Little and, obviously Graham Taylor get us close during his first spell. We've had some, although the kind of last 9 or 10 years have felt a little bit bleak, we've had some good times, but this is as good as I can remember. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would. In one sense, I think it's the most complete team that we've had, because don't forget, at the moment we're making really, really good substitutions, like for like substitutions, and using a lot of them, five substitutions a game or something like that, which is really good to see. But it's difficult to ignore the Martin O'Neill era and the John Gregory era as well, and indeed the Big Ron era. And when you take into account that they all probably arguably did it with, they did do it with less subs and stuff like that, smaller squads. But like I've got to say, as a complete squad, and the football that we're playing and the way the tactics that he's using is it is good. Yeah, I'd have to agree, I guess. Yeah, it is great to see.
So I know you're based down south now for work purposes, but how often do you get? I know when I spoke to you previously, you tried to target a lot of the London away games if you could get tickets.
Yeah.
But how often do you get to see the Villa now? We've been a busy actor and a dad of 3.
Yeah, it's being the dad of 3 that's the difficult bit. If you're working all week and then you say, "Oh yeah, I want to go off all day on a Saturday," it's and it isn't a whole day affair, really. Sometimes it's easier to go to the London away games because they're like home games for me. So I target all of those: Chelsea, Spurs, Palace, if I can get there and stuff. But I would say probably 6 to 8 home games a season, and it could include the odd Champions League game. And then I'll probably get to about 4 or 5 away games. I went to Ipswich the other week. I always like to try and target a new ground if I can, or go to one that I really fancy. But it's not as much as I'd like, but I can't, my kids are young, so I can't really just do, go off at the weekends. It's just not fair. And Lainey, my wife, she's a big Goonie, big Arsenal fan, so she likes to get to their games every now and again if she can. So it's quite difficult actually, because I'm really trying hard especially this season with the boys and my girl to get them into the Villa, but then she's obviously doing the same thing with Arsenal, so it's confusing them a little bit.
Yeah, trust Arsenal to be good the time that Villa are good as well. That's typical, and that's making it a bit of a struggle for you.
Yeah, well, not too good for us to do the double on them last season. So it's, and I took her to both games actually. It was hilarious. We were in the Trinity, I think, for the home game where we beat them 1-0, and then for the return at the Emirates, I was in the away end with my mates, and she was in the home end with her mates. So it was a quiet journey home when we met up on the train after that.
Going back to like kind of you growing up as a Villa fan and stuff, who would have been your favourite player then as a kid?
Paul McGrath. I've never been a great footballer, but I played a lot of Sunday league, and I always played centre half. So you kind of watch the people a lot more maybe than other players if it's in your position, don't you? And God, some of the stuff I've seen him do from the whole, little back heels, like the ball will come over the top and he just stick his heel out and like back heel it back, and he just could read the game, and didn't run around like a headless chicken, and he just knew what he was doing. And then as I got older, I really liked I loved Ian Taylor and Lee Hendry. I thought was really good. I liked him, and all the usual ones, Rambo and whatever, and Sean Teal. Remember Sean Teal? Hard as nails, wasn't he?
I sometimes upset Villa fans by admitting this, but what did you think of David Platt? Because I still love David Platt, but there's a lot of Villa fans who, because he seems to have kind of airbrushed Villa from his career, have got a bit of a downer on him. But I just love watching him play.
He was great. I just thought he was just a bit of an idiot. Like he just came across as a bit weird, didn't he? He was brilliant for us. Yeah, I didn't really have that much of an opinion on him. I think I got more annoyed with Gareth Southgate really leaving to play European football with Middlesbrough. That was one that was just, I thought, what? Like David Platt, I didn't really have much of an opinion, but players come and go at the end of the day. That's the thing. It's a job for them, and they've got to go do what's right for them and what's right for their family, haven't they? So, everyone's got their own reasons, but I'm not one of these fans that really gets annoyed. And, with the whole Grealish thing, I thought it was time for him to go, and I'd have him back, in a flash. And I think he will come back at some point, but, I would never boo a player like that, for coming back. But, that might upset some Villa fans. Some Villa fans might disagree with that as well.
As heartbreaking as it was, I think people are vindicated when they go there and achieve what they want to achieve. When people go, like you say, Southgate, I think Ekiog went, and when they go places and you think, well, actually, you're not bettering yourself, that's frustrating. But I think you're right. I think he might come back, but I think he'd have to settle for a cameo nowadays, wouldn't he? I'm not sure he'd be guaranteed a start.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't, and that's a shame because he's not guaranteed. He's certainly not guaranteed a start at City. And I get it; he has played in games, important games and stuff, but he spent a hell of a lot of time on the bench, a hell of a lot. And I just think, well, it's different goals, and what you want your legacy to be. Do you know what I mean? It's like, $300,000 a week over six years, was it? And massive sponsorship with Gucci. If it was my son, I'd drive him there myself. No problem. Would there be no questions? Well, there would. There's a little bit of sentimentality in there as well. But yeah, you're right. I don't think he wouldn't walk into the team. But to have that play, everything went through Grealish. If you remember, every single ball, get it to Grealish, get some yards, he'll win a foul. But then I suppose we had no choice at the time that, we didn't have enough players around him to be able to attack as a unit and for other players to hold their own. It had to go through him. So I guess, he's met his competition at City, and if he came back to Villa, he would certainly meet his competition there, I guess.
This is a bit of putting you on the spot, but of kind of Unai Emery's class of 24, 25 then, who do you think is if you had to name one, it's difficult, but if you had to name one outstanding player, who would you pick?
It's obvious Emi Martinez, I think. God, if you want one keeper behind you, he's the best in the world. Oh, do you mean like that Emery's brought in? Or
No, just generally of the players that we've got now.
Yeah, and Morgan Rogers is so exciting to watch. If we can get him finishing, I think he's amazing. Ollie's just brilliant. We've got a squad of players. We've got options. I love John McGinn. There's a lot here about John McGinn at the moment, saying that people saying that they're not thinking that he's good enough for this squad, which I disagree with. As a squad, we've got different types of players, especially through the midfield. In answer to your question, I think it's got to be Emmy for me. What about you? Who would be the standout for you?
I'm just thinking about Martinez, because I don't think we've ever had a player, players that opposition fans love to hate. And they normally love to hate them because they're so good. But probably Lee Hendry used to wind people up a little bit. Yeah. So Grealish, I suppose, because of his kind of pretty boy, good looks and stuff. But
and Gabby.
Martinez, I just love it. I just love just the housing and
everything. The shoulder dance and all that. I love him. I love the guy.
Morgan Rogers, I'm Houseowing, lads. So Morgan Rogers is my flavour of the month at the moment, just because, just the way he plays. I keep saying it on Dan takes the mickey out of me because I keep using swashbuckling because he's got this real. I don't know, for someone so young to be able to be so quick and so physical, but also. So gifted. So he's the one. And we had this debate. I think I saw this debate on social media the other day, whether he is better than Grealish. Now, or better than Grealish was for Villa. He's a different player. And I think it's different times, Nige, because, like I say, everything went through Grealish. So he had to cope with all that extra attention and all that extra pressure. Whereas because Morgan Rogers is playing with a higher level of teammate, that affords him more space because Villa don't have to put everything through him. But I think if you look at certainly the age he is beyond where Grealish was at that age. And I think his ceiling could be, I think if he can learn that final ball and he can become a complete finisher, I think I said the other day, in the next 2 or 3 years, I think he can be one of the best 5 or 6 players in the Premier League.
Do you think he holds on to the ball for too long? Or do you think that's part of his strength? Sometimes he'll go through 3 or 4 players and I'm like, get rid of it. And then sometimes he does get rid of it and lays off a beautiful layoff. But sometimes he loses it. So I don't know whether that's a strength, whether he should be getting. But if you look at who else have we got who can carry the ball like that?
Well, that's it. I suppose Jacob Ramsey's probably the only one who brings the ball forward like that, and Bailey when he's in form. But I think with Rodgers, listen, we trust Emery, don't we? He's improved every single player that has passed through him, if you like. So I think a couple of more years working with Unai Emery, and I think he's going to. I actually think they might be moulding him to be Ollie Watkins' successor.
Yeah, I think that as well, because you don't know with John Duran here, but if Morgan Rogers could strike a ball like John Duran, I mean that guy he just shoots on sight like a sniper or something, and if he just shoots and he can welly the ball so hard, and if Morgan Rogers could finish like that and hit the ball, like I'm sure he can, but not as accurate or as hard as John Duran. But I think if he could add that finish to his game, then he'd be unstoppable.
We're just blessed, aren't we? And I think sometimes I play the role as the kind of grizzly, kind of cynical old man on the podcast, and it's like
you're not a moaner, are you? You're not a moaner in the Trinity.
I don't moan. I'm absolutely overwhelmed by how good we are, and sometimes it amazes me. But I think because I've been over the course a few times and seen us get so close, seen us finish second under Graham and then under Ron, and then seen like the succession of managers who have knocked on the door and got us so close. I'm always thinking, rather than really letting myself thoroughly enjoy Unai Emery, I'm thinking, oh my God, what we're going to do when he's gone? And I'm like, well, just chill out, just enjoy the moment first of all.
I know. It is. You've just got to like. I love the fact that we locked him down on a long contract. Then he was already on a 5-year, was it? And then they changed it to an 8-year, was it? I don't know if I got my figures wrong there, but we've locked him down anyway, which is great. But listening to Talk Sport when was it, earlier today or yesterday? And Paul Scholes going, if he gets offered he should walk to Man United. I mean, just the arrogance of them lot is just outrageous, isn't it?
I meant to ask you, Nigel, in terms of in the last, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years, you've got a little bit of celebrity and you've been able to kind of rub shoulders. I mean, I remember seeing you, I can't remember what kit launch it was a few years ago. I was waddling around at Bodymore and I think you were playing. Whose team were you? Were you on Heskey's team or something?
No, Heskey's team won it. I was on Stan Petrov's team.
See on your socials occasionally, kind of with Ian Taylor or Steve Stride and that kind of thing. Yeah. And what does that feel like now when you've been able to kind of rub shoulders with people who you kind of used to adore from the terraces?
It's great. It's really lovely. Stridey actually got in touch with me. Because I'd been following him. I thought he was he is a legend for Villa. I'd been following him for years on Twitter and he'd followed me back. And when the Line of Duty finale came out, I think he was he's really into that whole kind of crime thing and that. And he sent me a message and said, he wanted to touch base, really like it, and we created a dialogue, and then he invited me up there, which was great. So yeah, it is really good. I just wish I could get there more. Actually, I just wish, in an ideal world, I'd live a lot closer. It'd be part of my weekend routine as a family. We'd all go together, and it would be really good. But life doesn't kind of work out like that sometimes, does it? But do you know what? I've known Ian Taylor for years. I knew him before he became an ambassador for Villa. I knew him when he was playing, because before I went to drama school, I worked at Reese, the clothes shop. I don't know if you remember, it was on the corner of Corporation Street opposite the ramp. Yeah. And big shop there. And he used to come in there. So I knew him because some of the lads I worked with, I think they'd known him for a few years. And, I didn't know him well. I'd known him to say hello to and stuff. But yeah, it's really cool. It is really cool. Every now and again, I get invited into hospitality. Not by the club, I might add. Usually people who are friends of friends, and there's a spare ticket going. So it's lovely, but it's also lovely to sit in the stands as well. And I love the atmosphere. I just love being there in the first place. Met John McGinn. He's lovely. Had a good old chat with him. Met him at the Pride of Birmingham Awards, actually. Yeah. And it was really interesting here. Like, I was quizzing him about Emery, and he was saying it was just different. It's different gravy. The tactics, he said, he was just saying, like, he's really humble and down to earth. He said it's just really good for me to be working with someone like this who's so tactical. Like, every detail is there and nothing's overlooked. And he said I don't have much like dialogue with him, but on the training pitch, it's very specific. Everyone knows their job. Everyone knows what's expected of them, and he's got a massively high bar. And I think we know that, because you get that from the interviews after, don't you? He said, like, he keeps using the phrase, what I demand, the word demand. He says, yeah, I'm demanding more. I like that, because he seems to have their respect as well.
I find it amazing that you can have that real kind of winning mentality, kind of win at all cost mentality, at the same time as being a nice guy and a wonderful human being and a great ambassador for the football club. And I'm not going to get in the business of slagging off all the other managers in the Premier League, but there's some who don't conduct themselves with the same class and dignity as Emery. He never makes excuses. Everything that goes. If there's a rare off day, he'll own it all the time. I think we're blessed. And you mentioned McGinn. If you think about some of the ones who've been on that journey from Championship or early Premier League, McGinn, Watkins, Emi Martinez, Matty Cash, Ezri Konsa, so on and so forth. The fact that they've been able to step up, and every level that we've stepped up, they've been able to come with us.
Yeah,
I think that's a sign A of their personalities and B of the bloke they've got leading them. Really,
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that. For them to be on the journey and to be playing at the highest level now, along with him, and let's not forget the international call-ups as well. A lot of that's down to him, and people are regularly being considered for international service. And like you say, he comes across as so genuine and never forgets the fans. And I remember that from his very first interview after a game, when we beat United, straight away with the fans congratulating us and thanking us for our support and stuff. And you're right, I've never heard him slag off a referee. I might be wrong there, but I've never heard him.
No, I've never heard him slag off a referee, an opponent. I've never heard him dig one of his players out in public. He just owns everything, basically.
Yeah, and that is such an example, isn't it? I've never heard him, make excuses, blame things, like he blames ourselves. He said, right, we weren't at it today. We weren't our best. We had a good 10-minute spell, but for the rest of it, we didn't control the half and stuff like that. He's just great, isn't he? I
wanted to talk a little bit about your acting career. I'm going to bit of a silly question to kick this bit off, but if you could play any Villa personality, past or present, in a film or in a drama about Aston Villa, who would you pick?
Wow, that's a good one. Maybe in a few years, Big Ron would be a good one, wouldn't it?
You'd have to get some prosthetics on, though, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know. Put on a bit of timber. The hairline might start receding a little bit. Some big glasses, trench coat. Mac. God, that's a really tough question. I don't know other than that.
I was going to go Dean Smith because of the Brummy thing, but I didn't know whether that was just a bit too easy with the old ginger colouring as well.
Well, yeah, you got to think about castability, whether I'd be convincing visually as that. So yeah, I didn't think of that. That'd be a good one. God, we forget about him as well. What he did for us, don't we? What a guy. I think he took us as far as he could at that point, and he probably hates hearing phrases like that, I guess. Do you know what I mean? If I was a manager, I'd be like, well, no, I could have took you further, but with the resources available, I think he did take us as far as he could. But what a guy! As
much as you want a manager who's going to win your football matches, you want somebody who's going to be a good ambassador and represent you in the right way. I think Dino was very much that at a time when we needed that. Really, I know it's a bit of a cliche to say, give us our club back or whatever, but he was the one. I liken it to what Graham Taylor did when he inherited a bit of a mess in the late 80s. Sorted it out and got us back on track.
It's amazing what he did, really. And what was lovely was seeing the bond between him and Grealish and all that kind of thing, and then bringing Ollie Watkins there as well. I mean, look at what a revelation he's been.
I reckon you could do him justice, mate, in the Hollywood.
Yeah, I'd give it a go. Who would you play?
Oh Christ, I don't know. Fat Alan Hutton, something like that. I don't know. So you mentioned Line of Duty. So, I mean, can we give spoilers? I mean, when was the finale? About 2 years ago?
No. What are you talking about? The finale was 2020, wasn't it?
Was it that long ago?
Started in 19. So, we filmed it in 2020. So it was 2021.
So they'll know you from that. We won't give any spoilers in case people are on catch up 3 years later. But DCI, was it DS Ian Buckles that you played?
Apparently, the correct abbreviation is DSU, Detective Superintendent Ian Buckles. Was
that the role you think that kind of, catapulted you into kind of public consciousness, I suppose?
Well, yeah, but I'd done a lot of TV work prior to that anyway, and a hell of a lot of adverts and commercials when I started out. I've been at this 23 years. I started in 2002. I graduated drama school and come out in 2002, and I was really lucky. I started working on a lot of commercials straight away, and I became a bit of a go-to commercials guy. If I could rewind my career then I'd have changed that. So for about 3 years, I did nothing but commercials and the odd bit of fringe theatre that I got myself. And I thought, there's something going on here. I need to be doing some telly. But I think I became a cash cow for my agent because they thought, right, commercials, get him in. And, the ones I wasn't getting, I was getting penciled. They call it penciled. If you get penciled for something, you're shortlisted. So I was penciling 80% of the ones I was going for, even if I didn't get them. So I thought something's going on here. For 3 years, I was doing 7 or 8 commercials a year. Some were UK, some were abroad. And I think off the back of that, I would be getting, people would definitely double take on the tube and on the, in the street in London and stuff like. And I think it's more of a case, and they still do now. I think it's more of a case that they recognise me and they know that I've been on the telly, but they just don't necessarily know in what capacity. So and then when Line of Duty came out, it was crazy. I was on the cover of every newspaper in England and all over the internet and stuff. And typical my luck, it was lockdown or just after lockdown, and I couldn't, there was no work, so I couldn't capitalize on it. So I was really well known, thrust into prominence in the industry. I was almost too prominent, and there wasn't enough filming going. So I got lots of offers for some of the reality shows and that, and I just didn't want to do that at that time. So, and we just had our baby girl as well, my daughter. But then since then, it's been good. It's been all right. And to be honest, as an actor, you want to keep changing, keep evolving, and keep reinventing yourself, and keep doing new and exciting projects and stuff. So, Line of Duty has been great for me, but now it's time to move on. If I'm honest, I don't think there'll be another one anytime soon. I think everyone wants to do another one, but whether that happens or not, it's getting everyone together and getting the right story and getting it right, I guess.
My son's just started watching Peep Show lately. And I was trying to say, have you got to the bit yet where I said I'm interviewing Nigel Boyle tonight. You might have seen him in Peep Show, but I didn't want to actually describe your cameo because it's expletive ridden, if I remember rightly.
It's just one line and dropping the C-bomb straight down the lens. But yeah, that was great. And do you know what? When I got that, I'd never even watched it. To be honest, at the time, I'd never even heard of it. And I was in the pub with my mates, and they said, "Oh, I had the audition go." I said, "Yeah, really well." I said, "They've offered it me actually. I heard from my agent late last night, and they want me." I said, "What was it for?" I said, "This Peep Show." I said, and they all fell about. They were like, "What? This is like the best thing ever," And when I actually started watching it before I did it, I was like, "God, this is something else. Nothing's been done like this before, really." Breaking the fourth wall and straight to camera and stuff. It was brilliant. Really, really, really good. Really something that I'm really glad I did. And I met Olivia Colman on that, and she was not obviously as huge as she is now, but she was kind of on her way up. But that really made her. But then she went on to amazing things. And Robert Webb and David Mitchell as well. It's a fantastic show and just brilliant writing. And all you need really is good actors and good writing, and you're there.
In fact, you've been in that. I know it's only a cameo, that in between us.
The
work with Steve Coogan as well, haven't you? That's comedy royalty right there, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a massive fan of Steve Coogan and Alan Partridge and stuff. And that was amazing because they wanted me for this little role, and I didn't have to audition for it. Sometimes you get straight offers, which does your ego the world of good. And then they said, you're going to have to improvise with him. And I was like, right, okay, because that's right up my street. I used to be in an improv group, and we used to perform regularly in London and stuff. And I thought, wow, this is great. So it was brilliant to work with him. The next one's got to be Ricky Gervais, though, my hero. So I'm hoping it's going to happen. I've manifested it, but we'll see, I guess.
I know that you're working on a project at the moment. I think this should be going live pretty soon. This podcast. So if it does go out this week, I think you start next week. Don't you? You're in a play in London. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it, Nigel?
Yeah, sure. So it's a brand new play by a new writer, and the play's called Going for Gold, and it's a true story about a boxer called Frankie Lucas, who's a boxer from St. Vincent in the Caribbean, and he's probably the most famous boxer you've never heard of. So he come over, he's part of the Windrush generation that came over in the 60s, and he got into boxing at an early age, and he was clearly very good at it, and he won the ABA championship twice. But he was battling with a lot of corruption and racism in boxing at the time. And he got overlooked for the Olympics, even though he was ABA champion, and then got overlooked again for the Commonwealth Games 2 years later. So what he did was him and his manager at the time, they said, well, hang on, there's more than one way to skin a cat. If you can't go and represent Britain, then why don't you represent St. Vincent? So they got in touch with the consulate, and they went over to St. Vincent, and he won gold. He went over to the Commonwealth Games and represented St. Vincent and won gold, which was amazing. So it's his story, really. And my character's George Francis, who was his trainer and who went on to train Frank Bruno. And you can see him on the footage of that Tyson fight with Frank Bruno and stuff. So when I read the script, when they offered me the part, I was all over it, because I was mad into boxing as a teenager. And I used to box at Wednesbury ABA. I don't even know if it's still there now. But I got into it, and I was really really enthusiastic about it, and this felt great. And when you thinking about whether to do stuff, particularly with theatre, if it's not been done before, if it's a new play, then adds an extra element of excitement then, because then you're the first one who's doing this, and you're putting your own stamp on it and stuff. And it's also at a fabulous theatre in London in Finsbury Park called the Park Theatre, which is very prestigious, and lots of industry personnel live in North London where it is. So a lot of people will be there, and press night's already blocked out, and it was a big attraction. And also it's on my train line, so I can get there easily to Finsbury Park. So that's always a bonus. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We go up next week. Go up means we start the performance. So on the 6th, and it runs to the 30th of November. And then we go and do it for a week in Barbados. So the lead guy, he lives in Barbados, so he's playing Frankie, and yeah, we're getting to go over there. So that'll be a right little pre-Christmas treat.
I looked at some of the kind of running order and stuff, and I think you're doing is it 6 nights a week and 2 matinees?
Yeah, so we perform Monday to Saturday nights, and then there's a matinee on Thursdays and Saturdays.
So what's that? That must be grueling, that, isn't it? Especially when you got to do the matinee.
Yeah, it's horrible, if I'm honest. No actor likes doing matinees. It's really tiring. What we do for a living isn't work, right? So I'd never call it hard work, but it is knackering sometimes when we're in rehearsals now, and it is really grueling. Long days, and you use so much energy when you're performing, and you've got to match that every time. But throwing a matinee into the mix, during the day, and then you've literally got about an hour off before you're back on again to do the show. So yeah, but it's part of what it is, and you know what you sign up for, don't you? So it's there's no point moaning about it. You just get on with it, and then you're off on then you get to the evening performance, and then you're buzzing after that, but shattered at the same time. So it's the adrenaline is just draining. But then have a couple of pints, and then you're all right, aren't you?
I won't keep you much longer. But so, do you know in advance what your next job is after this, or is that the kind of almost the jeopardy of an actor's lot, if you like?
Yeah, when you're freelance, I don't know anyone who knows what they're going on to straight away. So for me, it's get Christmas out of the way and then back to the drawing board. Big believer in work begets work, particularly in this business. So it's always good to be working, and people want to know you when you're working. They want to know what you're up to and stuff. So I've no doubt that something will be in the pipeline before Christmas, hopefully. But you never know. And if that doesn't happen, then I'll get Christmas out of the way, do my tax return, and fight through all my receipts, and then hopefully something will turn up then. I've had a really busy year. I've been really lucky, touch wood. I've been kind of flat out since April. So yeah, it's tough, But like I say, I've been at it 20 odd years now, so I don't know anything else.
No, brilliant. Well, listen, I hope the work comes rolling in. If not, I'll have to get working on the old Big Ron screenplay, mate, and you can pig out over Christmas for that role for the new year.
Well,
but
or that, or I'll help you out with the evening mail, maybe.
that's it. You can come on, mate. One day, one of us will get a proper job, won't we? Between us, I thought. But
Well,
listen, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been
You're
a pleasure
welcome.
speaking to you. If you haven't seen Nigel in any of his, like I say, many and varied roles, then go and check him out. Honestly, he's a brilliant guy, and it's lovely to see you representing Birmingham on our screens as well, mate. So, listen, until next time, you've been watching Claret Blue with me, Matt Kendrick, and our special guest, Nigel Boyle. Up the Villa.
Thanks, mate. Up the Villa.